Today, we're going to tear down what looks like a pretty standard 6th grade poetry lesson. But what if I told you that hidden inside its exercises about choosing words and breaking lines, there's a whole philosophy about what education is even for? Let's dive in and see what's really going on here.
So how in the world do you get from a line of poetry to something as big as a moral compass? I know, it sounds like a huge leap, right? But as you're about to see, this lesson plan is actually designed to build a very, very deliberate bridge between the two.
All right, before we get to that big, deep meaning, we've got to start with the nuts and bolts. And this lesson kicks off with the absolute fundamentals, the craft of picking the perfect words. First up, the lesson hammers home the power of revision. Check this out. We see simple, kind of boring phrases like, "the sky was nice," get transformed into, "the azure sky blazed." This isn't just about using fancy words, no way. It's about making you feel something, creating a real impact. The big takeaway here? Every single word matters. Okay, next. The lesson pulls out another tool, the line break. You take a clunky sentence like, "the waves crashed and it was loud," and you totally transform it. It becomes, "the waves crashed," and then, bam, loud as thunder. That little change in the structure completely alters the rhythm and the power. It's all about making the reader pause and really absorb that feeling.
So now that the students have the basic tools, the lesson shifts gears to what might be the most crucial phase of all, revision. See, it's not just about getting that first draft down, it's about the art of making it better.
And this feedback process, it's super structured. They use this poetry review form that asks really specific questions like, does the tone feel true? And why did your change make the poem better? This forces the students to get critical, to really think about the process of improving, not just the final poem itself.
I love this part. This metaphor of a potter shaping clay just perfectly captures the whole philosophy. It's saying a writer isn't some genius waiting for a lightning bolt of inspiration. Nope, a writer is a craftsperson. The message is that amazing work comes from patient, step-by-step, deliberate effort.
Okay, so we've seen the how, right? The techniques, the word choice, the revision. But now, the lesson makes a huge pivot. It starts to show us the why. And this, my friends, is where things get really interesting.
So the lesson brings in this proverb. And what it's saying is that the right words, arranged with real care, aren't just effective, they're beautiful, they're valuable, they're precious. This is the first big clue, where we start to see that bridge being built between the practical act of writing and something more, a higher moral value.
And then, boom, the lesson makes the connection crystal clear with this truth to remember. The act of revision, of polishing your poem, is reframed as a spiritual act. You're not just fixing mistakes, you are polishing your work so it can shine for God's glory. All of a sudden, writing poetry is serving a much higher purpose.
Now that that connection has been made, the source material for the lesson plan finally pulls back the curtain and shows us the full educational philosophy that's been driving everything we've seen so far.
And here it is. This is the foundation for the entire lesson. The HeroesMart Academy's whole goal is to weave together education and biblical morality. Why? Because of this core belief that education without morality will hurt. So, in that context, a simple poetry lesson, well, it becomes a perfect opportunity to teach kids about diligence, about purpose, and about spiritual value.
And what's the ultimate goal of all this? Well, it's tied directly to a specific biblical promise from the book of Romans, achieving peace of mind. The argument being made is that by folding faith into every single subject, the curriculum isn't just designed to make students smarter, but to actually contribute to their spiritual well-being.
Which brings us right back to our big question. We just did a really deep dive into one lesson plan from one school with a very, very clear worldview. But it makes you think, doesn't it? Every single educational system, whether it's secular or religious, is built on a set of values about what's important. So, the final thought to leave you with is this. Where else does education try to shape more than just the mind?